Hello Game Trolls, and welcome back to my countdown of what the best gaming year of the decade was of 2010s. Last time we did from number 10 to number 6, and at number 6 we had 2010, which fantastic, just brilliant year with some legends, absolute legends within the gaming industry, like Red Dead Redemption 1, Mass Effect 2, Fallout New Vegas, Mafia 2, Bioshock 2, just absolute, just bombs, like Heavy Rain, just all good stuff right there. Black Ops 1, 2010 was a great year, but what could one-up it? Well, here we go with number 5, which I say is 2018, because last year we had some bangers, man. There was some good stuff. Obviously, I think probably the biggest game of last year, the one you're seeing on screen right now, Red Dead Redemption 2. Honestly, probably like one of my favorite games of all time. It's like one of my greatest gaming experiences, like the best week I've had of gaming ever. This was a fantastic game. Honestly, dare I say, better than the first game. That may be a controversial opinion, but I honestly prefer this game over the first game, at least in terms of like the gameplay and stuff like that. Obviously, the first game, I haven't really seen too much of the story. I know enough of the story to where I could really compare it with this game and stuff. But yeah, just fantastic game. Red Dead Redemption 2, probably one of my favorite games ever. Really, definitely like top 5, top 3 of the decade, probably. But like it wasn't just Red Dead last year. We had Spider-Man as well, which you saw in part 1. Yeah, also just a fantastic game. I can't say it's probably the best game, because like the story itself I didn't find horribly strong. It was a pretty decent story, with some pretty good bits. The ending was all right it was pretty all right and stuff like that. It was a relatively good story, but obviously its biggest strengths were the gameplay and the world and the exploration and stuff like that. That was probably like peak Spider-Man gameplay in that game. It was just like, you really can't get better than that. You really can't. You'd be hard pressed to get a better Spider-Man game in terms of just the gameplay than that game. But yeah, fantastic game, fantastic exclusives. Another exclusive came out last year was God of War. With technically God of War 4 or even 5. I think there was the main free, and then I think there was like a, well, not like a spin-off, but it was like a, I'm not sure. There was a fourth game that had like a subtitle to it, but I can't even remember what. Yeah, God of War 3 came out in 2010, and then God of War Ascension, that was the name, came out in 2013. So we had a couple God of War games within this decade and stuff. Actually, we had more God of War games in this decade than we did in the 2000s. Think about that. But yeah, obviously I'd say probably the best one, at least of the decade. I don't know. I never really cared about God of War, but then like that little reboot was very good. A very good game. Definitely like top 10, top 15, lowest top 15 of the decade game in terms of games. Fantastic game. As well as that, we had Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which again, like, just ever since Unity, which came out in 2014, I'd say like the Assassin's Creed series has just completely lost me. I don't really care. Like, Syndicate wasn't the greatest. Then you had like Origins, which was 2017, which I didn't really care for, and then Odyssey, which last year I didn't really care for. It still was pretty good. I'd say probably the best one since Unity, but I don't know. You also had like I'm just saying, Nintendo's been on a roll since like the Switch came out. We had Tetris Effect last year in 2018, which was fantastic. Like, I don't know. Tetris has really had like a resurgence in the past couple of years. Tetris 99, which came out this year, and then Tetris Effect, which came out last year. Fantastic game, very beautiful game. Then we had Return of Obra Dinn, which again another indie game similar to the one I mentioned previously in the last video. Definitely like one of the biggest indie games of the decade and stuff. Fantastic little story there. of you just being like this like time traveling ghost whispering investigator guy on an abandoned ship trying to figure out all the stuff that was going on, and it was very cool game. You had The Crew 2 came out last year as well, which I liked The Crew 2. I played the beta last year. It was pretty fun. And the crew's probably like the most passable series in Ubisoft. Like it's got probably the best driving, I'd say, because like I'm not huge on Ubisoft's driving. In most games like Watch Dogs, I'm not really into the driving in that game, but I think The Crew was actually pretty alright in terms of the driving. And then you had A Way Out last year, which came out I think like January. It was Q1. Can't remember specifically what year it was. Q1, which sleeper hit was Way Out. That was a fantastic game right there. Far Cry 5, which probably the biggest downer in this little. Actually, no, second biggest downer. I didn't really care for Far Cry 5 too much, but I say the biggest downer, biggest disappointment of 2018, probably one of the biggest disappointments of the decade. Like I said, with Watch Dogs and stuff, Fallout 76, which I say probably the reason why this isn't higher up on the list, like number 4, number 3, is because of Fallout 76, and Far Cry 5 and Detroit Become Human, which were like the biggest releases, and they were all just rough. Probably Far Cry 5 the best one out of those, that evil trinity, but yeah. And then you had Just Cause 4, which I'm alright with the Just Cause series. They're definitely more fun to look at than to actually play. At least Far Cry, Just Cause 3 was. I didn't really enjoy Far Cry, Just Cause 3, but I'll talk about that in a minute. And then you had Battlefield 5 and Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which they're alright, I guess. I mean, they're pretty alright, And then of course you had 2K19, which probably the last good WWE game of the decade, because 2K20 was not very good, and to be honest, was kind of better than 2K18. So yeah, but yeah, that was 2018, number 5. Definitely a strong year. Right in the middle of this ranking. At number 4, though, we have 2015. Now, 2015 was an interesting year because, at first glance, like back in the day, like 2015, 2016, I would have said 2015 was the best year in the decade, easy. Like, probably even one of the best years of gaming, just in general. It was I always like held it to like a high regard as being like the peak of gaming in terms of like the releases and stuff. It went down though, in my estimations, after I actually like played some games from 2015, because like let's look at it. Like I have actually, I think 2015 is the year I have the most games from. Looking at it, because I got 2K16, WWE 2K16, which was on the PS3, so it doesn't really count. But I had Batman Arkham Knight, which I love the Arkham series. I think this is the first time I actually get to mention the Arkham series, because none of the other games came out in any of the previous years. But yeah, Arkham Knight was definitely a solid game. It had its faults, obviously, like the tank stuff, and just the story was just not as good at all compared to like Arkham City or even Arkham Origins, or Arkham Asylum was definitely like the weakest story of the bunch. The gameplay was probably the strongest though, like it definitely, like, at least stealth and combat were super evolved and stuff, but compared to the other games. But yeah, this is a decent game, right? So that's also a big thing, because that was like probably one of the most anticipated games I ever had was Arkham Knight, and that ended up being a disappointment. So that's one fault, right? Then you had Just Cause 3, which again I said I don't have too much fun with that game. It's not like, it's definitely a lot more fun to watch and a lot more enjoyable to like hear people play, well, see people play it and hear them talk about it and stuff like that, but actually playing it's not too fun. And then you had MGS5, which I was always alright with. I was always like, it's not as good as the other ones, story's a lot weaker. But I always thought like the gameplay was probably like the peak in the Metal Gear Solid series. And then I actually played MGS5 and hated life. Like it's basically the same experience I had with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. But the thing with Ghost Recon Breakpoint is that it's less, like it's less instantiated, I guess you could say the word is, where like MGS5, there's like you go in, there's like a specific mission, and it's like it tells you, oh, there's a million ways to play it. You could go in guns blazing, blah 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 blah. But really, it's not. It's very much like, yeah, you have a very set path if you want to actually get through this successfully, without any like issues and stuff like that. It's very a frustrating game to play. I hated MGS5. Like, it's probably the only game I have that I've never finished. I really hate that game. And yeah, that's all the games I have that I've played from 2015. So kind of like 2019, a bit of a rough patch there, in terms of games that I played. But not to say that it was necessarily a bad year, because then you had possibly number one game, like in general, the number one game, not my personal favorite, right? But number one game in general, The Witcher 3. I'd say that was probably the best game of the decade, at least top three, in general, not my personal top three. I haven't played Witcher 3, but watching it, like seeing all these people play it and stuff like that, the story was fantastic. The gameplay always seemed pretty interesting. I like just the RPG elements and stuff of it. It was just a fantastic game, probably one of the best games of the decade. So that's one notch on the 2015 belt right there. Then you had Fallout 4, which not it was definitely like super anticipated, because like the last Fallout was New Vegas, right? And that was 5 years in the past, right? It's not at least from what I've seen, not the strongest Fallout game. Obviously better than Fallout 76. Been a pretty interesting year for Fallout. It's like there's been a gradual decline over the decade, to where like the start of the decade was like one of the best games of ever, and then at the end of the decade you just fell completely on his face. But yeah, Fallout 4 is pretty strong. Not the best of the series, but pretty strong. And then you had Undertale, which I never really personally cared for Undertale, but actually looking at it, it was definitely but just from the reception, at least, it's like probably one of the biggest games of the decade. So I can't say anything about it. Like everybody loves it. Then you had Splatoon, which is pretty alright. You had, of course, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which I mentioned just before, which was it's like in that weird middle ground where I didn't necessarily hate it, but I just completely lost love for the Assassin's Creed series. So I was just like, I don't really care. You had Evolve, which was pretty solid. I'd say that was a very good game. If you don't remember Evolve, it was basically it was like this multiplayer game. It was like it's like this asymmetrical like Monster Hunter game, where like you had 4 hunters, and then you had one monster, and like the player who was playing as the monster would try to evolve their monster to get better, like going Super Saiyan, and stuff. And then the hunters were trying to kill the monster, and the monster was trying to like, I can't even remember, but it was a very good game. I really enjoyed like watching it and stuff. It seemed really cool. You had Until Dawn as well in 2015, which I like Until Dawn. It was very interesting. It's probably like one of those. It's one of those like Detroit Become Human or like Heavy Rain, where it's like there's issues here, but yeah. Then you had the first reboot, I guess, of the Battlefront series, the Star Wars Battlefront series. Then you had Mario Maker 1, which I love. Mario Maker 1, fantastic game, probably like top 20 of the decade. You had MKX, Mortal Kombat 10, which first game since Mortal Kombat 9, obviously, that I think came out. When did it come out? It was like, I think 2009 actually. It was 2009 or 2008. It wasn't actually called MK9, but yeah, it was definitely not in this decade, I don't think. But yeah, pretty solid game as well. Mortal Kombat 10. I don't really care for the Mortal Kombat series in general, but so I really can't rank which was better, like between 11 and 10. But yeah, you got Rainbow Six Siege, which was fantastic. Love that game. It's obviously, as I said, huge following, just like Undertale, huge following for that game. You had Minecraft Story Mode from Telltale, which probably the weakest Telltale, but still alright. You had Lego Dimensions, which I love purely because it had all that Doctor Who stuff. It's like probably one of the best Doctor Who games ever. Like, it had so much good stuff. Like, it was very that, just for that alone, I love that game. You had Mad Max, which was also very good. It was a movie tie-in for the actual Mad Max game and stuff, which was pretty alright. For the Mad Max movie, should I say. Then you had Halo Guardians, which I mentioned in the previous video. Yeah, it wasn't very good at all. Just I saw like I watched a walkthrough of the story and I saw people play the game. I literally can't remember any of it. That's how bad it was. You had Battlefield Hardline, which was kind of the big started the downward spiral in terms of Battlefield for me personally, because I just like I'll actually mention this later, but I loved like Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3 were pretty good, but then like Hardline was just like, why are we doing cops? The story was stupid. The actual multiplayer was just silly. Like I didn't care. Like it was just so. It's like what? Like what's the word? Like what's an example here for like a weird? It's like it's kind of like if Far Cry Blood Dragon. No, it's like it's oh wow, what was the name? It was freaking what was it? That Far Cry game where you play it as cavemen. That one. It was like that one where it's just like, why are we doing this? Like what's the point of this? That was like Hardline. It was just like this weird like spin-off thing. I was like, why are we doing this? This is not what this series is supposed to be. It was really stupid. And then you had Black Ops 3 as well for the Call of Duty, which don't really care for that. Yeah, this year definitely would have been at the top, like number 1, but just there was a lot of disappointments with it, which dropped it down to number 4. I still hold it at a high regard purely because of just my experience within that year itself of that year. Like I was really loving life that year, but like as the years went on, it's kind of fallen down. Definitely like there are certain like 2015 and 2018, if there were just like a few more issues with them, there would definitely be under 2010, because as I said, 2010 was a pretty strong year. But yeah, the thing is, of course, they don't have too much nostalgic factor, and I didn't really have much experience with 2010, which is what I didn't play any game besides like his VR 2011, which I hated. But yeah, I don't really have too much of an experience with any of the 2010 games, which is why they're not super high. But like, you know, they're still legendary games. They have to be pretty high. But yeah, so now we go to number 3, which is at number 3. Well, we have 2016, which is weird, right? Because originally, like, it's kind of the inverse. 2015. Originally, I thought this was like the worst year. I don't know what it was. I just always was like, man, this year sucked. None of these games were good. And then I kind of looked at sort of the lineup and stuff, and I was like, you know what? 2016 was pretty alright. Definitely, like I'd say, kind of like Red Dead Redemption 2. Probably one of my best experiences with gaming is these two games, like Final Fantasy 15 and Watch Dogs 2, which came out 2016. Which Watch Dogs 2, in terms of the game, like the actual playing the game was a lot more enjoyable. The actual game itself, I'm really not into it. I prefer the first Watch Dogs just for what it was, whereas like Watch Dogs 2, I just kind of prefer playing. It's like a weird thing. I prefer Watch Dogs 1, but Watch Dogs 2 I think is objectively better. This is kind of what I'm saying. In terms of like the gameplay, the story is like nowhere near as good as the first Watch Dogs, at least for parts of the first Watch Dogs. Like, what was it? Like Act 2, I think? It was like Act 2, Act 3? I remember there being like 4 acts, I can't remember. I think it was like Act 2 was probably like some of my favorite stuff ever in terms of like the story, like just the whole, like, I'm not gonna spoil it, but yeah, as soon as like Act 2 ended, I was like, man, this game horrible. And like Act 1 was like alright, but I didn't really care for it. It was like this weird evolution. But yeah, Watch Dogs 2 was definitely like one of my favorite games to play ever. Like, I have a walkthrough of the game on my channel I was doing to count down to Watch Dogs Legion. I stopped it, not because I didn't enjoy it or because it was too hard to actually like film and edit and stuff like that. It was pretty difficult, but the thing is, of course, is that I finish it and there's still like 10 months until Watch Dogs 3 comes out, so I kind of just paused it, and then I'm gonna pick it back up in like February maybe, just to be able to actually do it on time with Watch Dogs 3. But yeah, and Final Fantasy 15, I absolutely adore. Like, if Red Dead Redemption 2 is like my personal favorite, Final Fantasy 15 is like my second personal favorite. It was very good. It's kind of like Mass Effect Andromeda was, I'd say, objectively a bad game, but I still really enjoyed myself with that. Like, top 5 personal favorites. Whereas Final Fantasy 15, I think, was actually a good game, and I really loved playing it. So yeah, like, if I played Kingdom Hearts 3, I probably would have loved it, kind of like I did with Final Fantasy 15. Just like the Square Enix, their RPGs I just actually really like. But yeah, and then, well, what else do you have in 2016? Well, you have 2K17, which not very good, as I said in the previous video. I don't really think it was good. Like, it was definitely like a downer within the years of the WWE games. Like 2K16 was pretty alright. Like, wasn't the greatest, but it was like a step up from 2K15. Was pretty alright, and then 2K18 was a lot better than 2K17. 2K17 was just like that weird middle ground where it wasn't very good, but it was kind of good. Then you had No Man's Sky, which, again, like Fallout 76 and Watch Dogs, and I think there was another one that I mentioned in the last video. But like, in terms of like the biggest disappointments, No Man's Sky is definitely up there. It's like, it's weird. Like, if there were just like a few changes, a few like things they did differently, like, I think at least in terms of just enjoying the game, people would actually be a lot more fond of it. Like, if there were like an actual kind of story, if there were characters, if there were just anything to do, you know, like, if it wasn't just, oh, go to this planet and mine stuff that you can't use really for anything besides building your ship, which all you're gonna use for is go to places faster, just to mine stuff. This weird gameplay loop that was just not very good. Then you had Dishonored 2, which I actually really enjoyed. Dishonored 2, at least from what I played of it, I played like the demo, which was like, I think, the first 4 levels, and those first four levels were peak. They were very like, that was probably like my favorite demo to play. It was very good. And yeah, just the story and everything was pretty alright. Then you had The Division, another big disappointment. It wasn't necessarily a disappointment, it was just kind of I don't know what to call Division. Division 1 was not very good, but it's still pretty alright. You had Pokemon Go, which, again, kind of in the same place as like Undertale and like Fortnite, and actually, I have Overwatch here as well. Like, Overwatch and Pokemon Go, like, I'd say 2016 was like peak year in terms of memeage. In terms of just the memes, I'd say 2016 was like top tier stuff. Then, like, you had Street Fighter 5, which I think is pretty alright. You had Firewatch, which sleeper hit, kind of like, I really love that game. That's a fantastic game. The story is just, set in the 80s. The music, it's so, like, it's very underrated. Probably like the most underrated game of this decade is Firewatch. That was a fantastic game. Then you had the Hitman reboot, which of course was the first Hitman after Absolution, which I said wasn't necessarily bad, was definitely like straying away from. It was kind of like if they did Assassin's Creed Origins, but the other Hitman did not need to be rebooted. Is kind of the thing. It's like Origins was like the reboot that they kind of needed because like Unity and Syndicate were not doing good, and so they changed it up, made it more RPG-esque and stuff like that with Origins. Whereas Absolution was like a change where they just kind of made it like a straight like third-person shooter with some little bits of stealth in there. Compared to like the other Hitman, which actually felt like a Hitman game, if you would. And then this reboot that came out in 2016 actually kind of went back to their roots, I guess you could say. Then you had Doom, which I think Doom is pretty alright. Obviously, kind of like one of those big games as well that everybody loves. So obviously that. I guess, as I said, the meme year. You had Battlefield 1, which was alright, I guess. Was at least it went back to war setting, and I actually really do enjoy the World War 1 setting. I really do like. I don't know, I have a fondness for like the World Wars in terms of making games about them and stuff like that. Obviously, as I've gotten older, I've gotten less enthusiastic about them because Nazis are wildin'. But like World War 1 with just the amount of the massacre that was, but put that in the gaming setting, and it's like a fun time. So and then of course, as I said, Overwatch, which I hate personally, but it's definitely one of those big meme years, meme games that everybody loves, and is still popular even to this day. Overwatch 2, everybody's excited for that. So yeah, then you had Mafia 3, which I didn't hate, but it definitely wasn't as good as Mafia 2, let's just say that. And then of course you had Infinite Warfare, which again I say is like, what was 2017? Was it 2017? Was World War II. So they kind of, with Call of Duty, it was kind of like that reboot of like, okay, this is bad, so we need to change things up. We need to change things up, go back, or refix some stuff, kind of like they did with Hitman, just a year earlier. But yeah, and of course, I think this is the only year without an Assassin's Creed game as well, because this was kind of like the gap year between the Syndicate and Origins, where they were just like, okay, Syndicate, nobody's loving these next gen Assassin's Creed games. We need to change things up, and then they made Origins and Odyssey. Also, this year didn't have an Assassin's Creed game either. So 2016 and 2019 are the only years without a Assassin's Creed game, which is interesting. Yeah, but anyways. Now on to number 2, like the top 2, which I can't I can't like these definitely, like everything from like 2016 to 2017 and 2010, or even 2017. Yeah, I'd say were pretty good. Like they were definitely like a high point. Like they were in the moderate area where they were just like very good stuff, right? Especially like 2010. As I said, like I can't sing the praises of 2010 enough. Like it's a great year. I just don't have any personal nostalgia or like any like personal experience with that year. But in terms of just the caliber of games that came out in 2010, it's definitely like peaking, right? But these 2 years, these top 2, just beautiful stuff. At number 2, we have 2011. Kind of like 2012 was like the start of my sort of experiences with YouTube gaming and just gaming in general. Really was like when I really got into it was 2011. Like I got my PS2 in like 2008, and I was kind of like I was just kind of coasting in terms of like games and stuff. And then like 2011 came along, and I was just like, oh my god, I love gaming. That was like when it started, and then I fell out in like 2017. Still do love games though. But yeah, 2011 was like the start of my gaming like life, I guess you could say. And of course, one of the biggest reasons for that is Arkham City, which, like, if there was a game more nostalgic than Arkham City, I'd love to see it. Like that's peak nostalgia right there. Is that game? I love Arkham City. I can't sing the praises of Arkham City enough, man. I love that game. Definitely like most nostalgic game ever. It definitely was the strongest story of the Arkham series. I love the Arkham series, and it's really because of Arkham City. Then you had WWE 12, which is the first sort of post SmackDown vs. Raw game, and I think WWE 12 was pretty alright. Not it like WWE 13 was better, I'd say, but like WWE 12 was definitely like, again, peak nostalgia right there. I think that WWE 12 is like the first game I actually watched on YouTube. I think that was actually the first like gaming video I ever watched, was like WWE 12 videos. Then of course you just had bangers, right? I'm just gonna list off these games here and just brace, right? You had Portal 2, you had Skyrim, you had Minecraft, you had Dark Souls 1, you had Battlefield 3, you had LA Noire, like Modern Warfare 3. Just, oh my goodness. Okay, maybe not Modern Warfare 3, but like all those games I just listed. Like, how could this year be any better? You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, just, oh. Then you had Uncharted 3, which again, absolute nostalgia with that game. Like 2011 is definitely like nostalgia city right there, along with like 2012. Like, oh my god. Then you had, The Witcher 2 came out in 2011, which the first two Witchers I've never actually seen or played, so I don't really know too much about them, but they're pretty alright. And yeah, then you had like Infamous 2 that came out as well, which I do like the Infamous games, and Infamous 2 was pretty good too. Last one with Oh, what was his name? I can't remember his name. I'm a bad fan. The main character, Cole. There we go. From from the Infamous games. As I said, Uncharted 3 as well. Nostalgia City, love Uncharted 3, and like Infamous and Uncharted, both exclusives and both like they're like pillars of the PlayStation like community, I guess you could say. And you've also had Driver San Francisco, which is pretty good too, like a big highlight of 2011. But yeah, 2011, fantastic year, for one of the best years ever. But it's not number one. At number one, we have 2013, which of course, if you did the math, you figured that out. 2013 was definitely the best year, I'd say. Of course, it was the year when the next gen consoles came out, so it was like, oh my goodness. Like, this is like 2011, 2012 were pretty alright, right? You're pretty good. And then, just like 2013 came along with like the next gen consoles, and we just like went to another level in terms of just everything. Like just, I'm gonna list out some of these games, right? I mean, two games, which I say probably top 3 as well. Like, what did I say was top 3? It was like Red Dead Redemption 2 or something. No, it was like some game I mentioned earlier that was like top 3. The other two that were in the top 3, GTA 5 and Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I love Assassin's Creed 3, but Black Flag was just something else. Like, honestly, like one of my personal favorites of this decade. Just I love the pirate, and just was like peak Assassin's Creed gameplay right there. I'd say Rogue was actually probably a bit better in terms of the gameplay a little bit. And I did like the story of Rogue as well. It was just kind of like Black Flag, but a little bit upgraded. But Black Flag itself was just something else, man. Nostalgia City again in GTA 5. I mean, what can I say about GTA 5? Honestly, what can I say about that game that hasn't been said already? And then, of course, you had Last of Us, which I personally I'm not too fond of. I don't really care for The Last of Us. And Last of Us 2 also is just kind of like, eh. But everybody loves Last of Us. So it's kind of just like that one where it's like, okay, everybody loves this. And then another one that's really nostalgic for me, and I really enjoy it, and I think it's personally underrated, is Mario 3D World. I love that game. It's like, as I mentioned earlier in like the previous video, what was it, like Arkham Knight and like Infamous and stuff like that. It's like 6, like 4 or 6 years old, and they still look gorgeous. Freaking Mario 3D World came out on the Wii U, and it's still a super gorgeous game. Like it was gorgeous when it came out. It's still gorgeous now. That's a fantastic looking game, and the gameplay and everything. I love Mario 3D World. To be honest, I preferred it over Odyssey. To be honest with you, I can't say anything about Mario 3D World. Then you have Battlefield 4, which is my personal favorite of the Battlefield series. I know people love Battlefield 3 instead. But I personally adore Battlefield 4. And then Far Cry Blood Dragon, which is kind of like the inverse of Primal. There we go, that was a caveman one. The inverse of Primal, where Primal wasn't very good, but like it was like a stupid spinoff, whereas Blood Dragon was like, yeah, this is exactly what we should be doing here, guys. Just fantastic stuff right there. Far Cry Blood Dragon. Then yeah, Injustice 1, which I love Injustice 1. Again, super nostalgic, and it's like I remember it's just like my experience of discovering Injustice, where I was like, I used to go to like this supermarket, well, not a supermarket, like basically like this mini mall. Let's just say that. And there was like this section with like magazines, and in that section there was this magazine about gaming. Can't remember what it was called though, but it was showing like, it had like an article talking about Injustice, and also this was around 2013, around that period. So I also had like Sleeping Dogs in there, which is also why that's also super nostalgic. But yeah, you had like Injustice in there, and I always thought it was an Arkham game. I was like, oh my god, there's Superman in Arkham and stuff like that, but that was a completely different thing. But yeah, I love Injustice, very nostalgic game, that one. And then you had The Wolf Among Us, which it's not as strong as the first two Walking Dead, but I'd say probably the third best Telltale game. Like it was better. It was better than like the Batman one. It was better than any other one really. Like I really did love The Wolf Among Us. That was fantastic. I love just it was dark. It was like dark, grim fairy tale stories set in like the modern world. It was fantastic. Then you had Metro Last Light, which yeah, I just kind of want to mention when the Metros came out, just because I actually played Metro Exodus. Then of course you had Arkham Origins in 2013 as well, which super nostalgic game right there. I played the heck out of Arkham Origins. It was the first Arkham game that I actually played myself. It wasn't the first one that came out, but that I saw. But yeah, but Arkham Origins was pretty good. I love Arkham Origins. Very nostalgic, that one. Very underrated as well. Just because there was like a couple inconsistencies and like plot holes and stuff like that, especially within like the continuity, but even then it was still a pretty solid story, and I kind of did really like it. Only real problem was the whole, twist. It was like, oh, it wasn't Black Mask, it was blah blah blah. But yeah, then of course you had Dead Rising 3 came out in 2013, which I loved. Dead Rising game. I don't know what it was. It was just like it's very nostalgia heavy as well, because it was like just 2013 is pretty nostalgia heavy, but like I don't know. I just remember just the excitement of PS4 and Xbox One coming out and stuff, to where like I remember watching a lot of Dead Rising 3 back in the day. And of course, you had Call of Duty Ghosts, which I don't know. I think I don't know. Like Call of Duty and just in general, I just can't really say too much. But yeah, Call of Duty Ghosts came out in 2013, so that was an interesting one, I'll say the least. But yeah, 2013 is probably like my top year of gaming ever. It was very good. I really did enjoy myself in that year. That was a fantastic game, just a fantastic year, just awesome games, next gen consoles and all that hype and stuff like that. Just great year, and it's my number one. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Tell me what your top 10, your full top 10 is. Yeah, this was a fun video to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys had a good time here. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video, which I think this is definitely the last video of 2019 I'm going to be doing. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed just 2019 and just the decade in general. Hope great things in 2020, in the future as well. 2020, just in terms of gaming, is looking stellar. Like it's looking like it's gonna be like the best ever. Really, like you have Cyberpunk, you have the Final Fantasy 7 remake, you have Watch Dogs 3, the Avengers game. Just things that I can't even remember that's coming out that I'm super excited for. Just gonna be a peak year, 2020. It's looking just it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great, man. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in 2020. Probably my next video is gonna be like a Doctor Who review of some sort. I don't know, but yeah, had fun making this. It was an hour's worth of content, but you know what, whatever. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Troll on. Hey, bye!